be an issue. Okay. So council did actually authorize a reduced rate. We started waiver of the application fee, and then a reduced rate of about 50%. Costs on these is, a deposit of $2,000 plus licensing fee of $1,700 per parking space. Now, most of the streeters actually, when they installed them, they didn't know there was going to be a cost associated with it, but they took two. So that puts it at $3,600 at full rate. There's another factor that the businesses are calling out, which is insurance costs. The city actually had a trigger point of $3 million coverage because these streets are actually in the street. So there's a higher insurance coverage rate that's required. Most businesses carry about $2 million. So they actually had to get an additional policy. So when they kind of talk about costs, there's an extra $1,000 or $1,000 plus, depending if you had alcohol liability and other things that go with these. So these are getting pretty expensive. So enough to say, we're talking about staff and really where we're staffed with the businesses. We wanted to kind of bring this back to this committee, kind of have that discussion. To say we probably there's options to explore this because we established this program. It wasn't really about revenue generation. It really was about supporting our business community and providing kind of that vibrancy, right? That return element, the activity on the street face. So revenue, trying to find that balance, right? Regulatory requirements, basics, insurance, and ADA accessibility, but also to say we wanted to create a program that is accessible and people utilize. So that the fees are kind of becoming a barrier. And recognizing when we established the fees, we were doing our best at the time. Like, what is the going rate for this? So really, I think this is an opportunity getting that feedback from the business community to say, we probably need to dig a little deeper on the fees. Probably you need to work with the businesses to make sure the program just doesn't die because no one can afford it.
I do want to
I'm sorry, the microphone's not working, that we can't hear.
Yeah, we're having a hard time hearing.
not on. How about now, Eli?
It is, it just kind of cuts in and out now and again.
Okay, well, give us Leah will be paying attention in case it goes sideways again. So I was just trying to put into context the issue of cost and revenue and why would the city charge a fee for this in the first place if we want to, create this opportunity for the businesses to continue. There's all good vibes about it. I think one of the challenges to put into context is that our parking services fund is not in a great place as a result of COVID. So it's for sure, it's not about revenues to make money. It's really about looking at that parking services fund and trying to make sure we can keep it healthy. The patterns of parking, as we all know, is like, that's one of the things that's changed as a result of COVID. So we want to find something that works, and it is prime, parking spaces. And so that's the kind of the trade-off is how do we make it work for everybody? But we've got deferred maintenance on our parking structures that is like, it's a long-term issue, fiscal issue that we need to manage. So we'd like to just say, free for everybody, but there's a push-pull there that we need to try to find the sweet spot.
Can I add to that too? Is that okay, Mike? I don't know if you
No,
want to
please.
keep going.
No.
So I
please.
think there's also an equity issue in terms of some of the retailers and other service businesses on 4th Street, because that restaurant is taking up 2 parking spaces. There has to be some sort of
Offset.
cost to that in order to balance it out. However, I think exploring the cost is a great idea. But there has to be an accountability to be having those 2 spaces for the benefit of your particular restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh, no, so is the 2K, the upfront, is that, so that's different from the parking fee, right? That they're paying. So the 2K is a little more flexible because I think, I think what Joanne brings up is important is because there has to be some value put on the parking,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
And I think there needs to be some precedent set that says, hey, look, if these parking spaces are used, there needs to be some kind of monetary, you know, rental fee or annual, whatever you want to call it. But I think maybe that 2K could probably be a little flexible. I think that may be where it's getting, because obviously you can't dig into the insurance piece, right? You can't, because that's required, and the ADA pieces, right? Because I think where a lot of these businesses are really starting, you know, not only building the, you know, the structure, then with the new the code and things like that, and then they're running into these new fees, that's when they start saying, well, maybe it's not economically possible for us. So I think that maybe that 2K can be looked at, and I think that may be hitting the businesses a little hard, because I think we do need to have a precedent on the parking piece, because so many businesses, like Joanne said, are, you know, well, they're taking up 2 right next door to me. That's taking up my valuable parking spaces where people can run in. Yeah.
Yeah, however, to that point
Yeah.
though, the fee of $1,700 per space was probably, you know, calculated out of particular usage. And if the usage has changed because of the pandemic, maybe that can also be looked at in terms of, you know,
Yeah.
if those were actual parking spaces, what would the revenue be in today's usage?
Can I just add, the other part that's hasn't been brought up, it's a public benefit. I mean, the
Mhm.
parking spots belong to the taxpayers. And so giving it to a private entity, number one, and number two, as far as I can tell, most of the streeteries are not open all day long. So they're actually getting a premium. So I
Yeah.
hear what we're saying, and I want us to keep delving in. But yeah, I mean, maybe there's more permanent, I know we've talked about that, solution for some of them, bulb outs. But I do think there has to be some fee, and it has to,
agree.
I think it has to
Agree.
bite a little bit.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think just to respond to your point about like, how did we calculate the fee based on what? I think that there is, I think, and we could double check with Jim Myers, obviously, on this. I think the street parking, the on-street parking is still,
Premium.
is probably back to pre-COVID
Yeah.
levels. It's the garages where we're really
Yep.
seeing the
Yeah.
reduction. So, you know, but it's worth revisiting and making sure the basis in which we calculated that, it, you know, makes sense based on today's occupancy.
Are you thinking of phasing it further? Micah?
Potentially, I mean, some of them,
Okay.
you know, some of the business also asked about a payment plan and like other options here, and it's like, and I actually think we actually control that, you know, we've offered payment plans for other type of permit fees too, you know, so. I think there's ways to do this, but to just recognize that the take rate on this in terms of fee payment and actually coming to full compliance is being held up a little bit because the fees have been so steep. There's also been a question too for the businesses as we kind of soft rolled this out. We've had a really bad winter. So like a lot of things they're banking on earlier just didn't really materialize. So we're starting like the outdoor dining season later. So that's been a factor, I believe.
And are we flexible on outdoor dining on the sidewalks? Like, forget about the streetery part, like, hey, put some tables and chairs on your sidewalk in front of your building and you're good to go. Have we been?
We have not, and actually that's one's a little more.
We haven't flexible.
Well, we haven't, that's an area that I think we need to evaluate a lot. Just because of the ADA accessibility, that's really problematic.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen some of those restaurants that have a random table out here, like, well, this is kind of near the door. Let's be smart about this, or planters everywhere. Like, this is about 2 feet. We need about 5. So just recognizing there's other issues that these come into, and I think our focus was to permit and set up the approach on the streeteries to get them legalized and set, and the insurance coverage. And then at that point, work with everybody on the ADA who do encroach in those areas.
I recall before streeteries, there was a program for outdoor dining where you could put tables and chairs on the sidewalk, but you had to get a permit and you had to insure it because it was in the public right of way. So that model exists if we want to, you know,
Look at it.
Look at it. Yeah.
I think Councilmember Hill might have a comment or question.
I did not, but that you prompted me. I'll just say, I like where this is going to make sure that we, as you put it, Joanne, too, let's explore costs. I like the examination of, you know, what is the degree of flexibility we can think about for the 2K? Is the 1,700 per parking spot still the right fee? And then all these questions, I think it raises, you know, do we want to start setting expectation of what the periodicity of the revisit should be, setting that expectation going forward? Do we just wait until it becomes a crisis, or do we say, hey, we're going to look at this every X amount of time? So I like where this is, and I like that we're taking in the sentiment of our businesses and as Christine put it, also how do we resolve, how do we pay for all of this? And there is a direct line between obviously the public right of way that these spaces belong to the public. And so if we can't give them away, but we also don't want to overcharge either. So I like the idea of making sure that we're committing to right sizing.
Well, and of these 13 businesses, right, there's 13 that have existing ones. And when you talk to them, they're saying it's too steep. What isn't too steep? Like if you ask, you know what I mean? That's right, yeah. Something they say that's too expensive. I say, okay, what's your budget? What are you willing? So if there is a sweet spot, because it can't be free. We know
And
that.
how many do you lose? Is the nut, I mean, do you see how many you're losing at one price point or another price point? And is it bad if we lose a couple versus, all of them go away?
And I also think that the season, I mean, we just did a 1-year anniversary at Ounces Outdoors, the beer garden, Terra Linda, and my God, they opened a year ago and we went into atmospheric river. And they're 100% outdoor venue. So we can't let that season dictate any massive changes going forward. I think exploring it and looking at it, because we don't want, in my opinion, I think the streeteries are here to stay. Outdoor dining in general is here to stay, whether that's a combination of tables and chairs pulled out every day on a sidewalk versus a permanent streetery. I think certainly that's something that's very popular, and we see that in shopping centers everywhere.
And could you have a sense of what other, and I don't mean Marin, because I think we've done it way better than anyone else in Marin, but other cities where they've landed on this, or, because we're not the only ones struggling with this.
Yeah, we're not. And I think there's always been this question about I guess, lease rate, or, what is the cost to a business to operate that? And, throughout my career, I've come across this multiple times where there really isn't a set standard. Like, okay, what is the cost per square foot average? And, it's not a retail space, it's not a parking space, it's a little bit different. But to Christine's point, we established ours based on base fee offset. Like this is, on an average, this is what we're losing by allowing this to occur. So that's where we set that. But to your point, there's got to be a sweet spot somewhere, and then really it's that opportunity to kind of go back out to those businesses. And I do agree with Josh, it's like maybe the deposit's the one that we kind of look at to say, is there flexibility in a deposit, or we set this aside, or there's, the deposit was set up in case they end up not taking care of it and we have to take it down.
It's a band-aid, yeah.
So
What is the difference between the bulb out cost and a streetery cost? What is that different?
I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't a cost on the program wise. It's like trying to bring the bulb out, the existing bulb outs, or they don't pay anything now. There's some insurance provisions and licensing. So I think they were built in when we did the 4th Street, the original, that's when we kind of established those, but it was an opt-in where the businesses paid for the construction work to do the
planner.
Yeah. So
It was to create the environment
exactly
that we created now.
Yeah.
and it's enough where currently I've been approached by Pond Farm because they actually had a streetery and they decided not to renew it, but they want to do more of a bulb out permanent one. So we're exploring that right now. But
We
this,
wait till we get second for that.
It's in the plan. It's
no, we've already coordinated those pieces. Yeah, so it's not near that area. It's kind of towards the hardware store that they're looking at, utilizing the area, but we're evaluating that.
I think I could have sworn there was some sort of public area in that plan.
Next, well, they have a public area adjacent to the back side of it, or to the right side of their structure.
Yes,
I don't want to.
yeah,
But I drive through that intersection today. I think you might have too.
Yeah.
Okay, but the point being.
yeah, there are other businesses starting to ask this question. And I think there's a factor too about some of if you sell alcohol, the alcohol beverage control license. If there's a separation of space, like when you actually have to walk through the sidewalk, a server is the only one able to deliver alcohol. So if you have it near your building or adjacent to your building, you're not in the public right. So then people can go and for Pond Farm, there's services at their bar and you can walk up, get your beer and then come back out. So there's some other factors that are playing into this, and then I do believe ABC is going to start tightening up their regulations because they've been pretty lax during the
During
pandemic.
COVID.
So then, and with the next, I believe, next year, they'll start closing that loop where they're gonna actually require any alcohol services that meet kind of the harder regulations.
So how can we be helpful?
Mm.
I think this feedback is really what we're looking for, to say, hey, is it appropriate to open this up and explore with our business community? I think I've gotten that kind of feedback, and some of the initial thoughts were to the point, like the deposit, you know, like a reduction or waiver, payment plans to spread the cost. Looking at different kind of cost methodology, maybe it is a commercial square footage cost methodology versus a parking meter. But Josh, you mentioned insurance. I actually think there might be an opportunity to explore insurance. And what it is instead of having them individually go at insurance rates, you might do a program one. And it might actually be the city actually looks at, because technically it's our liability because it's our property
Right.
anyway. So,
To increase it, if it's on public property, I get the ABC insurance, but if somebody hurts themselves in one of those parklets. I was surprised at that.
My sense, I don't know, is that there's probably some secondary liability that the person could go after both, even, you
They
know.
Probably would,
And
yeah.
so, but my other thought about that, about the deposit is if the purpose of the deposit was concern about having to clean it up at some point if there's a problem, and we should talk to the city attorney's office about the insurance piece of it
Yeah.
and what we can do. I like your idea of a pool or a program like that, but there might be a way also to ask, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, to ask the businesses to, in the agreement, to acknowledge that if it does need to be removed, that they're on the hook to pay for it. And, you know, they could do that or not do that, but it might be a way to say that's where we can be flexible, but we need you to acknowledge that this is a responsibility we're going to ask you to take care of if there's a compliance issue.
So the other thing you could do too on the annual fee is if you pool the insurance and it's under the city that they are paying into it. So it's not costing each one of them $1,000
Yeah.
additionally for the 3 million. It's less than that.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
yeah, no, that's kind of where I was looking at too. I've done that in a couple other, like if you're under a city program umbrella, you can actually buy a rider insurance policy to actually cover that program, so.
Okay, and I would look at dropping the cost, even if it's just a little bit. I don't know what the sweet spot is. I think it's such a great question. Because we know we just passed our budget that we really depend on the sales revenue. We really depend on having 4th Street activated. And I agree with you. I think it's here to stay. We want it to be here to stay. So maybe it's one of those things that we set the fee, we drop it for a little bit and say, we're going to review it again in 2 years or whatever. So they know that we reserve the right to increase it. But I wouldn't have a problem dropping it a little bit, it's not free, you know, and I probably wouldn't go below $1,000.
Yeah.
But really 700 per over the long, I mean, for us, it's really not, I know about the parking fund, but our parking fund whole is bigger than what this is here.
Oh, absolutely.
So I actually would be willing to.
So there's some work to be done.
Yeah.
So,
Mike, can I ask one last question? Is there a preference between streetery or bulb out that the city has?
I believe it would be bulb out, because of the long-term management of it,
Okay.
because the streetery is semi-permanent and that's kind of, but it deteriorates, right? Over
Right.
time, you know, like, oh, it's starting to look raggedy, and where the bulb out has a little more purpose and a little more permanent. So I do think there is a preference for that. Also in our downtown precise plan, they actually envisioned that kind of that activation in our streetscape pieces. So when I actually brought up the pond farm question to both Public Works and community development, they're both supportive of it. You know, so it's like, okay, let's see how far this goes.
Yeah, the only reason I asked that just is from a pivot wise for the city of what they're promoting more and what may be more beneficial. Just looking at it that way, and again, this is all kind of diving into later, but I think that's something to think about too, because if the city prefers the bulb out, if it's in the precise plan, maybe, you know, maybe asking these, and it's cheaper, you know, because there's not those fees that you talked about. I mean, there's the parking, but I understand there's more the construction costs that go along with it. Maybe that's something to look at as well of what the city promotes more of.
So there's pros and cons to it, and
Yeah.
we can get
Yeah.
into the weeds
Yeah.
of this, but if restaurant, I just spent $30,000 building my
Yeah,
Donnie,
I agree.
I'm gonna be real
Yeah.
happy that the guy next to me or down the street's getting a bulb out for X dollars to put
Yeah.
table and chairs. So, and weather is a factor and they're all thinking about that right now. So it needs more thought.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there is an equity provision that's kind of in the background of it to say, what does a fee structure look like? How's this approach? But we're getting both questions asked. So that's the area where we're evaluating.
See if anybody.
Any other thoughts on this one? Thumbs up. Okay, moving on to the second item, and this is just gonna be the economic development strategic plan. This could be a standing item, just to talk about like where we're standing, what we're doing, what our approaches are, progress being made. So you know, the plan was adopted on May 15th. God, it feels like I've been sprinting. to May 15th. Now it's already here. It's like, okay, let's do the rest of this. So right now, the big pieces on this is establishing the business expansion, attraction, retention. So establishing what services that the city provides. In this case, the services we have been providing, but we don't really market it. So it's really working with kind of a marketing approach and getting the word out about what it is. Like, what is economic development? What do you do? So, you know, we call it the BEAR program, but I want to move away from that because I'm like, it sounds like you're scared. So what?
You liked it 3 weeks ago.
I said it because I'm like, I've been in this industry, no one ever called it that until Costco put it in their plan, so. Okay, so, but, the thing, really, I'm trying to brand it a little differently, is the Economic Development Go program. Like, let's go, like, exciting, kind of moving it forward. And been working with our internal city teams to try to develop at least the mock-up for this and potentially bring in some consulting to actually help, you know, the graph design and the approach website. To really kind of launch this, I want to really try to set the bar high on this one, because it really is our at least for the business development standpoint, it's our front door. This is how people search and look at the city. How do we engage? How do we start? But its true goal for me is it's the back end of it, right? It's how we do business. It's a capture point of inquiries that are coming in. We've seen this problem where they go to Christine, they go to Josh, they go to, all across the board, but no one really captured that. I'm like, oh, did they ask you? Oh, so trying to bring that together in a capture point so we can actually refer back to the program. So to say, oh, hey, did you hear about our Go program? There's a full brochure online. Here it is. You know, connect with that, and then they'll follow up with you immediately. And that's really kind of the approach. It's an enhanced customer service program to kind of bring that together. I think the key on this one is the program offerings. One thing that I get concerned with is the overall volume, but I think it's good to track it. And that's one thing I don't think we really have been doing a good job of, is tracking how many inquiries we're getting. What is the take? What is the volume? And what are the outcomes? And really that's what this program is set to do. And it really goes to kind of council's direction on metrics, right? Here's an opportunity to establish metrics, investment, businesses created, jobs created. And really that's the approach to do that. So that's why we kind of call it a foundational program. And I'm really excited to kind of get this started and launch. So. Timeline on that. I already have initial mock-ups on kind of like some starting positions for this. Really, the key was was watching the budget for adoption. Then try to look at sometime mid-July or August, you know, basically summer launch of the program. So and I think we're on track for that right now. But early on, I'd like to bring it back to this committee, probably July, August, just for feedback on the draft mock-ups, see if this is on track or is anything else we're missing. I do really appreciate the input that this piece group provides for that.
Mike, I have a question on that.
Sure.
And I think you mentioned it, and I think about you mentioned two personas in what you described. You know, we're talking about attraction and retention, right? So there are obviously businesses that are already in place. We can subdivide those further in terms of how long they've been here and the types of businesses. And then on the attraction side, I think there's kind of two personas in there. There's prospects, people who are looking around or maybe aren't looking at all, and how do we get their attention? And there are folks that are just coming online, and you know, how can we help them out? So as you're thinking through the Go program in attraction retention, that's a pretty wide array of personas. So I'm curious, are there ones that we're emphasizing, or we're trying to be kind of looking at every single one in we'll call this release one of Go program?
I think we're looking at this release one of the Go program. When I've launched this in other communities, it really does run the gambit of like who actually takes this, and may it be a large time developer who had no idea this is what the city offered, but they're happy to do it, or a small business who just has a upstart concept. And it really is just providing the pathway or resource of what it takes to kind of identify their idea. Like, okay, in order for them to move forward, this is what we would need. And it just provide that guidance, that upfront guidance of how to actually do that or how to navigate with the city. And that's why we really kind of call it really, it's a customer service program. And really kind of setting it apart, it's kind of like you can go to multiple cities. Most of these businesses or developers are looking at multiple cities, multiple opportunities. But what sets apart Sanderfeld, and the ability to be responsive, I think is key. And it's kind of the same, I kind of liken it to, the local hardware store that provides that extra customer service, or like Home Depot. Like you could get both, but one provides this, and sometimes your preference is the one that's really responsive and gets you what you need. So that's kind of.
I'm excited about it because I think that, I get calls all the time, right? And I get Amici's Pizza has a, HVAC problem on his roof, and it's code enforced and he's freaking out. And so I have a lady, about one-way traffic on Kerner. So do I call April? So I'm kind of like a dispatcher, and I happen to know all these people, so I can call them. But it would be awesome if it was the economic development department.
Yeah.
And it could be cross, what do they call it? Departmental, right? So you're kind of, triaging these things and helping me send the person in the right direction.
I think we're trying to get away from having everyone call April or Al or whatever.
And they're
just go through Micah.
overwhelmed. Yeah, and I think
I think triage is a good word for
it
it.
is a good word for it. Yeah, but it's gonna take all the partners, right?
Yes.
And the other thing too, and Josh and I were just talking about this separately the other day, is the really big projects. There used to be like, I think maybe it was community development, and they brought in public works, they brought in traffic, they brought in parking, and have those meetings, because it touched all of the departments. Think of the streeteries. There were 9 departments that were involved in the streeteries, but there's no central person kind of coordinating all of that. So I think there needs to be that.
We have revived those meetings. I think
What were they called? TCC?
DCC.
Yeah, DCC. That's it. Yeah.
But to that point, I think that, it's one of those things that needs more reinvigoration post-COVID.
Right,
And
right.
so let's talk about how do we make sure that's really operating at optimal as we try to figure out this triage system. How does that group connect with that to be really efficient and responsive?
And I think one of the things too, if I can, is this meeting used to be called business issues, where it was an issue that we were working collaboratively on.
Mhm.
And it would be really great if it was still a forum for that, because it is problem solving, and we are giving each other feedback that we really need. And I'm not talking about, hey, fix this guy's parking ticket.
Yeah.
But there are issues out there where it takes a collective. So I would just like to put that on the table.
Yeah, and Mike, one thing you and I have talked about is one thing that's really important with this program and makes me really excited is just responsiveness.
Yes.
Right, that ability to be almost responsive immediately, to say, hey, we've heard you. We don't have an answer for you right now, but we will find it out for you. The level of confidence that builds in the business community and builds, and that creates that feel of, okay, I'm being responded to. I can call someone and get an answer. They may not have it for me right away, or they may not, or the email might not be answered right away, the information, but I'm getting a response back saying, hey, we're going to look into it. Very similar like what we're doing with the 3rd Street response of when we have a neighbor that calls, we get back to them immediately and say, hey, look, we may not have an answer for you right this second, but we'll go to the team and we'll find it out. And that piece right there bridges so much, and it equals expansion. It equals word of mouth. It equals all of this that really builds a much more vibrant business community.
And talk about tracking, so it's tracking how many departments this issue is actually needed in order to solve it. All great stuff. I'm excited.
No, yeah, it is. And I do want to call out, you did bring up a point where, the DCC running through community development, it typically is projects that are already kind of at that phase. For me, there's an opportunity to actually get them very early on a concept level. And actually, that's where I think the city can make the most progress with the development or business concept. To get those early feedbacks before you spend a lot of money on property acquisition or plan sets. And you go into great detail, like, no, I just got a general concept plan. This is what I'm thinking about. And there is a lot of value of steering that on the upfront. And a lot of times, economic development world and business development world, the pre-development side is the one you can make the most benefit in. Because you really put a project on the right path to say, I want to take this road. These are a lot of issues over here, but you can steer it this direction. And it actually has better outcomes. It's great. Any questions or comments on?
This is a small question. Can you expand the initialism DCC? I wasn't familiar with that.
Sure, that's the Development Coordinating Committee.
Okay.
And that's the cross-departmental group of basically all the development review departments who basically evaluate projects like they'll lay out a set of plans, we'll go through their different comments, so everybody's aware of it. And then that's the feedback we provide back into the applicants. A lot of times it's a part of the planning process for application review, but it has been utilized for, I guess, development issues or, pre-development also.
Thank you.
Before we go to the partner updates, I just had one question regarding the SAFE program and how we're continuing to get the word out. I had a delicious lunch at the Garden Cafe, and the owner who owns that also owns Miracle Mile, and we had no idea about the SAFE program. And of course, I couldn't remember the number. I had to text Chief Spiller and
458 say
Say,
no, I know. But it made me think, he doesn't know. So I don't know if that's for you, Director, or I know we put it in the snapshot. And I
I
know
need to add.
Yeah, can you
So
add?
please share with the owners of Garden Cafe that they should join the Central Chamber. Not a member. of
The miracle, the same, of the Miracle
They
Mile.
are not. Okay, so they would know that information because we're a resource hub and information hub. But I just want to say that, so the chambers, and this is part of my update as well.
Oh, okay.
Wait, no. So the Chamber's Homeless Task Force has met with SAFE team. The project director also met, also was our guest speaker at the Chamber Morning Program recently. We also had a conversation with the Downtown Streets team, and now we're going to bring the two entities together to meet with the Homeless Task Force to talk about how they're complementing each other, where the challenges are, where perhaps the chamber has some recommendations on how they can improve. We're very impressed with the SAFE team.
Oh, good.
Their metrics are great. We've heard some stories of people who have actually interacted with them, property owners and business owners, about maybe how we can work together in terms of outcomes. But I do believe that a marketing piece needs to be made. So that's the one thing that we need. Aziz did come and give us some sort of pamphlet that was made by the Petaluma People Services, but we need something specific to San Rafael, which is literally like graphics that we can push out on social media. The bid can do it, the city can do it with the phone number. That's what I think.
We have that flyer that's gonna be going out tomorrow to all the businesses.
The flyers that Joanne just.
Yeah.
There's people, so it
Yeah.
has all the
Always.
4 numbers on it from Ronet Park.
I am gonna tweak it a little
I
bit.
think it
make
needs to
sure
be
that
San Rafael,
yeah.
and it's too text
I have
heavy.
I have two versions. of it,
Okay,
Yeah.
if you could share that
Yeah.
or take a look at it, I think it's really important that that information needs to go out.
Yeah.
Several different platforms and several different times.
And it was interesting when you said some of the business owners have feedback for the SAFE team. There's probably an education component there.
Yeah.
There are limitations to what the SAFE team can do from a legal
We
perspective.
understand that.
Okay, no, I know you understand
Yeah.
that, but I think
Yeah.
some of the business owners were like, well, they came out and look,
Well, I'm not gonna put Chris hard on the spot, but he's on the call that,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
he's
yeah,
on
put
the
you on the spot.
homeless task force. He's had direct interaction with the SAFE team. It speaks very highly of what they're doing. But also I think their goal is just to de-escalate any kind of emergency service. It isn't, and they're, if they're on one call, there's one team, they can't go over here to this
Yeah.
this call. So we're just making observations, and we will share all of that with the intention that we want to make sure that the program is successful.
And you can tell, the cafe folks to sign up for our downtown Center Bell newsletter, because I'll add, I added it to
Oh, I can
last.
tell the garden guy that even if he's
Yeah.
not ready to
Yeah.
be a.
Yeah,
chamber
yeah, because I have all that stuff in there, but I added it in our newsletter and I can add it in.
And then not, I know you won't be prepared today, Mayor Kate, but we would love an update on tiny homes and where that process is. That keeps coming up in our task force as well. Because we have lots of interest, with property owners and business owners to be engaged in that program. Okay, okay. Yeah, and
Next
moving.
agenda item, we'll put it next month.
That'd be great. And then through our partnership with Keaton Marin Working, Josh and I put together let's call it a job description / duties of a economic sustainability coordinator that would be hired by the county. So that's in their budget proposal. We've had several follow-up calls with the county administrator office and Supervisor Sackett and other supervisors who are very supportive of that role. There's definitely going to be a cross-departmental portion of the county, but also with the local jurisdictions. So that would be something that hopefully is a benefit to our economic development department. Do you want to add anything to that?
And which, are you talking to Matthew, Dan, or Daniel?
We're talking to, first start with Matthew.
Okay.
And then Dan.
Okay,
And Dan, and because it's gonna come out of the county administrator's office,
Yeah,
it's gonna be an analyst, a senior
okay,
analyst.
I was just curious, because it's helpful for us to.
And
know
then-
Which person is
We're dealing with Dan. Yeah, we said
Daniel,
Dan,
what?
Dan Ironman, sorry.
Dan, okay,
That's what we said to Josh.
yes.
Yeah.
And then there's a new Daniel.
That I did.
Daniel.
Daniel,
yeah.
yeah, and I met.
And Mary Sackett and Stephanie Moulton Peters and Eric.
Okay, different names.
Daniel and Dan.
Okay,
Uh,
sorry.
happy to share that.
When did we saw didn't you share the letter with us?
They asked us to put together how we thought the person should work, what task they should be responsible for.
Yeah, Supervisor Sackett, I was actually with her last night and we were talking about it. We coordinated with her and with Supervisor Moulton Peters, and then they connected, we connected with Dan after that. And so what we're doing is we're all kind of sharing this job description
Great.
that they can drive
And
because, yeah.
Dan sent us the classification.
Yeah.
So I
Wow.
mean, they're, interested in hiring this person. So we're very excited about it. Let's see, we're preparing to work and support the BID advisory board in this transitional period and then afterwards. Sarah and I met and Sarah is going to join the chamber team. So we're super excited.
I'll let you get away.
No, definitely not, definitely. I was asked to sit on the design and advisory committee for the Move Whistle Stop project for the Bettini Transit Center. So I can update you on that. It's only 4 meetings. I think the design's probably baked in the cake, but hopefully some opportunity.
What? I don't know.
This is the Golden Gate, the
Transit Center.
Transit Center Committee that they asked for our input on, and one of our planners is gonna be on.
To present
The summer
design
outreach
concept to
program.
the-
I know, you called it something strange, the Move Whistle Stop, isn't it more the Bettini Transit Center design?
I thought the Move Whistle Stop surround was the preferred alternative. That they're.
Oh, I see your name.
Oh, you're just naming the design.
Yeah, and I was like. Thing.
Yeah, that 5-year black bunch.
Yeah, and I also got asked to sit on the Regional Measure 3 Oversight Committee, so be looking at that and advocating for more dollars for transportation projects in Marin. Josh, do you have anything to add?
No, just a lot going on. I think you.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
projects going on.
A lot of projects, a lot of prospective projects, a lot of questions being asked. Again, the leadership of the council on the housing projects coming in front of them has really spurred development interest. Let's
Yep.
just put it that way.
So we're excited, we will be meeting with North Cape this month. And their project, and we are inviting, gosh, who are we inviting to GAC? Can't remember.
Government Affairs Committee.
Yes, yes. Sorry, I don't have it on, but
You- I-
we're moving forward.
Yeah.
Moving the community forward.
You are, and I just want to, again, I always want to express enough gratitude to you guys because it really makes a difference in terms of the work we're trying to do, in terms of the work that Director Hinkle is trying to do, in terms of the BID in there is trying to do, makes a really, really big difference. And when I talk to other electeds at other cities and towns, it's just not the same. I'll be like, oh, we have our chamber, and they're like, it's not an option. I'm like, well, we are so fortunate. So thank you for your continued advocacy, especially with Peterman working and at the county level. We've been doing the same thing and we weren't moving the ball forward as much as we like. And the fact that you have been able to move the ball forward in a way that's huge.
Great.
Makes a big difference. And all the committees that you sit on and the interview panels and everything else are really, really.
Thankful for the collaboration as well.
So East San Rafael update.
Here.
Okay. Well, we know that they're one of the biggest sales tax drivers in San Rafael. Here, you can tell her, I told her, I said. She reminds you.
I was at that meeting and they were just they did a development update of the projects within the city and also had a update of available properties. So that was the big topic of the meetings this month.
And I'll add to that, and it's not East San Rafael related, but I met with the editor of Marin Magazine, which is a very high end, if you're not familiar with it. Boutique magazine. You're in it. So they just did their best of, and a third of the winners came from San Rafael, which is really huge because mostly when you open that magazine, it's Sausalito, Tiburon, and Mill Valley. And it was the greatest number per city, which makes sense because we have the most licenses here. But just, we had that ribbon cutting at Avant phase. I just think that we're seeing this growth and change and having the update from the commercial real estate broker at the Eastern Rafael Working Group to tell us about all what's happening was really exciting. So you should be proud. And
I am proud of all of them. So I had lunch, and this is our just these little anecdotes. I had lunch yesterday at the Red Rooster, and he's told us, or he said to me that after the postings from the ribbon cutting, that his business went up 15%. And I was like, I can't take credit for that because I have like 800 followers, but the chamber has a lot. And I just thought that was, again, it kind of was that nice reminder. So we put that stuff out there, we're not really, but he made a point of, saying that. So. Fantastic. Okay. Downtown BID, Sarah, you are on.
So, I don't know if you guys saw, but I gave a little, facelift to directory. And what I do is whenever there's a new business or if the business isn't in this directory, I add it on the back end. And on the back end, you see the name of the business owner, the day that they opened, all these really cool things that exports into a Excel spreadsheet. So it's a really great working database. And also, what I did was I added this drop down of categories so that people can actually search.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I get an email whenever someone does a search. And after I added this feature, it went up from like maybe once a week to once a day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I mean, obviously this is the most popular one, dining, food, beverage, and breweries. And then when you hit search based off of what I put in the back end, then you can see all the businesses that we have. And before it had all this kind of strange, like shelter in place, like hours and all these crazy things. And I just reduced it and I just added the website because I don't want to have to update all that. Every time I change. So this is kind of a fun project and it's ongoing. Whenever there's a new one or something about a business, I update that. So this is a really fun tool. And then I also have been updating our news section. So the news section, whenever a business sends me something, I don't want to put it necessarily in the events or the programs, but I put it here. And these are, you just add it, I add it here and they send me a little image of what's happening. And then I put the details on there and then it links to whatever I link it to. So these are just kind of really fun features. And then these are, the things that I add to the newsletter as well. So this is just kind of ongoing. So if you ever are interested, you can just always, there's the space opening. just all kind of fun stuff, and it's just ongoing, so it's kind of fun to face. Then the events and programs that we have, so these are the reoccurring, so the farmers market, dining of the lights, West End block party, and then these are the upcoming ones. So I just add these, you know, as we go, and then once, and you guys know this, I think, but once it's over, I go down and I add it to the bottom, and then I just put the TBD date, so it's like constant, you know, just what's gonna be happening in downtown. Farmers market was last week, which was really fun, having it back. So, and talking to Andy, I mean, one of the things was, he said, I will come back and make it on at the same time as Dining Under the Lights, so we moved it, which was no problem. It was just a great kind of combo of moving Dining Under the Lights to the second Friday to allow the farmers market to have the space that they need, because having two events at the same time just doesn't work. So giving them the opportunity to do that was really great. So I'm grateful for that. Dining Under the Lights, the second Friday of the month, last month was the first one that we had, and the second one is tomorrow. And our theme is the summer kickoff, because it's the last day of school. So we have lots of fun kids activities. This is the schedule. So we have the art walk from Seahouse to Luton's. We have a bunch of fun activities here from the A to D block. We got that. 4th on B Street from 4th to 3rd, and then the C to D block here, and then in the plaza. And then we also have this really cool idea, because it is kind of this weird block party, a way to kind of spread the wealth to all of downtown. Our board, actually, in our board meeting, recommended doing like a scavenger hunt idea, which we did in the holidays, which was really successful with the elf hunt, and we had about 250 families participate. So instead of coming up with like a whole different weird plan of doing a different scavenger hunt, we just kind of took the same idea and put little, you know, a little summer twist to it. So what we do is we put the elves in these businesses, and so each business pays to be on this map. This is the final map. I'm going to be passing out the elves and the maps today. So each participant, Red Hell Pet Center, they pay $20 to be on the map, and then I'm going to give them an elf, and then each elf has a little logo of what school they go to. And so for the holiday one, we had to find out what name the elf was, but for this one, it's going to be, you know, like Davidson or San Rafael High or Terra Linda or just any of the San Rafael City schools. So I think that'll be really fun, and the kickoff starts tomorrow, and it's all month long. At the end of the month, we will pull one of the names out, and they'll win. We have probably about $200 in gift cards that were donated by the business. So that's going to be kind of fun. And then the West End block party is still TBD, as you can see here. I don't know if Micah wants to share some updates, but you've been working.
I would love an
really
update
hard
on this.
Yeah.
Sure. We sent out notification for noise. West End block, so that went to property owners within 300 feet, along with the residents list. So there's, remember the number on there, it was over 300. We got that. Along with that notice was basically our standard process. You can contact a planner, provide your input or feedback. We took that impact information from there. We also had a survey that was there, that was available. We got like, I think around 800 respondents on the survey. The key thing on this one, and this is where I really explained it to really everybody who has interest on this topic, is it's not a popularity contest. It's really just the reason for it was trying to focus on what issues are there for this event and what are we trying to mitigate or solve for. So there are a lot of like probing questions, like when would you like this to start? You know, how many times a week? You know, what day is best? You know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So it kind of, and then the ranges of months and the hours. So, but then also what other issues are there? You know, noise, restrooms, garbage. Kind of like for me is the event growth is really what kind of was identified. It started out as a program under, you know, our COVID program, but then the Dining Under the Lights, but it's actually grown into something much bigger. So the impacts are actually starting to grow, and you start to see that. So we're working with Sarah, and then also the sponsor of this event is kind of one area I'm really trying to figure out, is this a bid event or is this a business event? Because there's some costs associated with this, and I want to make sure they're captured, especially about how many events are being requested. And actually who has the liability, who has, so we're still working through that. But it's enough where in working with the event host, and then it's Adam. The event host is starting to adjust the event request to lower the number of days, looking at different options to mitigate some of the impacts we identified. We anticipate actually going out with a revised submittal and then and kind of engage the community meeting and say, this is what it is. Everybody's kind of up to speed on that. But that's kind of where it stands currently. But one area that the city staff is really identifying is the actual cost for this. And also whose event is it? Bid, and this goes into this bid transition, because that's also a question mark. So we're working through those issues right now.
And it also kind of goes into, it's very similar to the streeteries where this block party is really benefiting a handful of merchants on that block. It's unlike the farmer's market where it's a community event and it's benefiting the whole of the community. So I think that needs to be in the
I
conversation.
don't know, I feel like this is a community event.
It's
I
a
mean,
community
there's the-
event, don't
yeah.
get me wrong. It absolutely is a
It does
community event.
benefit two businesses.
It benefits
but
two businesses
Whippersnapper,
very,
yeah,
very directly,
yeah.
very.
Cause what's happening right now is Adam with the Pint Size, who's the potential sponsor, because he's the one that coordinates all the music and he's the one that kind of broke off from the Dining Under the Lights formula, where last year we moved it from every Thursday and Friday to just Thursday, and Adam's successful community event was so vibrant that he's like, well, I want to do Friday as well. And it worked, but it did create a lot of problems. But with the community, they are calling and asking him on a daily basis, what happened to the event? When's the music? And I'm getting emails, what did you guys do? Why did you kill the music? Sandra Fell needs it. And I'm just like, no, we're going through the proper process. So it's a challenging one, but right now he is looking at doing it potentially every Thursday to use the same resources for, DPW closing the street. And then on top of that, doing it the second Friday of the month to use the same resources as the Dining Under the Lights. So these are just potential options for that he's looking at. But with it, the West End Block Party did fall under the BID umbrella of our annual events because it has fewer than 2,500 people and it just fits our bulk insurance. So I don't know what that's gonna look like, but Adam is saying if he is the one that has to do the insurance, he won't be able to do it. If he's the one that has to pay for the porta-johns, he won't be able to do it. So we have to look at it as like similar to the streeteries, like, do we want to keep this community event and help support it and, help revive it so we don't kill it? And what is that going to take? And, the BID, we don't put any money into it. This is just the BID staff time. Same with the Dining Under the Lights. We don't really put any money into it except for some advertising and some BID staff time.
However, the BID did take out insurance and an ABC permit for it, was my understanding.
No, the ABC permit is by the businesses. So in 2020, every single business, Ida helped them. She did all the
Got it,
work.
thank
So
you.
they all the ABC is on their permit, and it's called the COVID extension,
Got it.
which expires February 2024. So on that note, after next year, Dining Under the Lights will probably not be able to happen unless each business gets a permanent extension, which is going to be hard to get a permanent extension in the street, since it's a street.
Got it.
But so next year is going to look a little different.
And so the bid didn't insure it either? Did you do an additional?
It's in our,
insurance?
it's on our blanket.
It's in your plan.
It's on
Got
our,
it.
yeah,
Got
on
it.
our blanket
Okay.
insurance.
Okay.
So that's the West End Block Party update. I hope we can kind of keep it alive, but not, I don't want to get any more threatening emails from Angela.
I will say this, at least the information we received, basically the outreach we provided, engagement. There are issues. This event has issues and we're really trying to figure out what mitigation factors apply to resolve those or find a balance. And it's interesting, the feedback I've gotten, there really hasn't been anybody says, no, we don't ever want this.
Exactly.
Right, they
There is
want
like,
it,
we
but
want it
change
with
it.
balance and they just recognizing where slope needed.
There's gonna be people that don't want it, but I do think the balance and how far can it be scaled back? as I said before, I live within a half mile and I can hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is loud. And I do, yeah, so it's disruptive.
Yeah.
I mean, we just have to admit it's
Yeah.
disruptive. So what's the
Mhm.
trade-off there? And I appreciate the not a popularity contest thing because
Yeah.
that's just. Send 200 emails to Sarah, that's
Right.
like, yeah, it's just not about that. So when, before we close up on this item, what's your timing in terms of it's still TBD up there, but
Mhm.
when is?
So Adam would like to try to do something in July, but we still have procedural requirements to go through. One, we just got a revised proposal from Adam like a few days ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I got a revised proposal.
Oh,
So,
the email.
yeah, so working on, I actually want to recirculate that with the review departments, which is community development and police, to see what their feedback is in terms of like, okay, what would be our cost proposal for this one? And then what mitigation factors will be applied? It still needs to actually go, it's still reviewed by both the community development director and police chief for the permit issuance, but it still needs to go back to council for road closure. So there's a point of watching come back to council.
And is it Adam who is applying, is the permit, submitting the permit?
That's where I'm also waiting for confirmation. I think that's where we need to connect. I even told Adam, I said, this is kind of an interesting question because we're transitioning the legal entity right now. So
Yeah, and we don't have a council meeting.
I was just gonna say
in
that,
July, so we don't meet again
the 17th
17.
of July.
Oh, Terrence and probably Eli too. Terrence? You have a question? comment?
No,
Oh.
no questions on this end. Sorry, go ahead, Terrence.
No, well, I was just gonna ask, as far as the insurance, Sarah, is that through 2024 or until 2024?
The ABC or the insurance?
The insurance,
The insurance is until the end of 2023.
okay, so until, okay.
Yeah.
That was all, thank you.
And I also have a request into Andy with AIM asking, is this something that he's welcome if it was on the same day? Because again, one of the stipulations of the farmer's market coming back is that it wasn't at the same time. Another event, because that is pretty confusing. So I sent the email to him saying, would you welcome the West End Block Party on the Thursday or not? So. Because I don't want. And so I think I'm almost done, but we did have. This is one of the things that the board and I really want to work on is showcasing our San Rafael assets, which is one of the cool things about San Rafael is that we have our own baseball team. Nobody else has a baseball team. So every year I do a mixer with the at the Pacifics game where we have a link on our website where you can buy tickets and everybody that buys. So this year it's Thursday, June 29th. And when you buy the ticket, I'm still waiting for it from Andrew, but when you buy the ticket here, $2 comes back to the VIE. And last year I collected goodie bags. And so the first 50 people got goodie bags from all these things. It was really fun. It was a lot of work to do that. So this year I think I'm just gonna do a raffle. $200. Very fun. I mean, my truck was just filled with these goodie bags. So that was a lot of fun. So if you guys aren't doing anything, please come down and might ask Eli if he'll throw out the pit.
Start practicing.
Yeah.
I did it.
So wait for that email. And then we also have this kind of fun downtown East Passport program. Which is actually, I'm gonna move it to August. Because I didn't finalize the details, but it's basically just a way to bring, it's not an event, it's just a kind of like a scavenger hunt for grownups. And you get this passport and you go from place to place to place. And this is just a way to bring people to the month of August, which is generally pretty slow for restaurants. And you just download the passport, you present it at all the participating restaurants to gain a discount, you retain the receipt. I don't want the restaurants to have to do any work because I don't want them to have a stamp or explain anything. They just this thing, they present the receipt to me, and then they go into a hat, just like the elf hunt, and then we pull out the winner and boom, they win a prize. So it's just kind of fun and it's super easy. And again, they pay to be on it. I haven't come up with the exact price, but it'll basically just pay for itself. And so stay tuned for those details, and that's it.
Wonderful. Any questions here? Make them bigger. Yes. Okay. Don't see any questions online. Any other questions or comments? Awesome. As I said, just more gratitude for all that you're doing to bring that. It's amazing. And that website, that's incredible. I go to it and I send links to
Beautiful.
people. Some people are like, "Hey, then they go on Sam from like, have you seen this? You're making stuff up.
Yeah.
Say it straight. Okay, Hispanic Chamber. Cecilia, that was great. The chamber leadership graduation. We haven't met since then. Again, more gratitude,
Thank
an
you.
incredible group of people, both from the city and beyond. And I could just tell the fact that their families were there, and I could see the pride in people's faces as well. The confidence they have from going through the program was amazing. That is something that makes Summerfell really special.
Well, thank you for sending several people through the institute. We appreciate it.
Well, it's nice just to have the cross sector.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
no,
good.
that
That's
was.
good. And if I can give a plug for that class project called Call Marin Home. It is a spotlight on employees who work here, but they cannot afford to live here. They did a video of several different employees. It's on our homepage, on our website. It's an 8-minute video. It's a little bit long, but the message is very, very clear and it's very provocative and very. So feel free to share it. It's also on YouTube. Yeah. Fantastic.
Well, thank you. Well, unless there are any other questions or comments from the hybrid crowd? No, just smiles all the way around. We love that. Well, thank you all as always. This meeting's adjourned and we'll see you, well, we'll probably see you tomorrow and the next day. So lucky.